Hello everyone, this is the Effort Avenger here, and it's time for another album review, and this was requested by a fan of the show, and this album is Cry Baby by Melanie Martinez. It was released August 14th of this year, 2015, so not a long time ago from now. Some chart information about it: it peaked at number 6 on the US Billboard 200, and number 1 on the US Billboard Top Alternative Albums. It was released on the label Atlantic, and its singles are Pity Party, Soap, and Sippy Cup. So without further ado, let's get this started. When I was asked to review this album by one of my friends, I wasn't sure what to expect. I had never heard of Melanie Martinez before, but considering that this is her first album, I guess that can pass. Anyways, I had to do as much background research as I could for this particular artist, and she has been described as not only an electro-pop artist, a genre which I'm quite familiar with, but also a dark wave artist, and I was like, well, that's different. I've heard of new wave, I've heard of chill wave, but never dark wave, and I guess it's really, as you'd expect, a kind of post-punk new wave style with rather dark, depressing lyrical content. So of course the majority of this record will be filled with synthesized instrumentation and various musical and artistic sounds. Interesting that a debut album is actually a concept album. The whole concept and story of this album revolves around a young girl named Cry Baby, who was actually portrayed by Melanie herself. The basis is a time-tested theme that has been used in literature, films, and music for centuries, and that is a loss of innocence. The character of Cry Baby represents Melanie in that when she was growing up, she was always very over-emotional about things and took a lot of stuff more seriously than was necessary, and was often made fun of for it. Cry Baby is the same way in that she literally cries about everything that upsets her. The intro track / title track, Cry Baby, sets up the feel for the rest of the album, where it continues into the following track, Dollhouse, telling the story of Cry Baby's family and home life, which, as you could probably tell, is less than perfect. Her father is out man-whoring around with another woman while her mother stays home and drinks herself to death, and her brother is addicted to drugs. All she can do is sit there and watch it all happen and, of course, cry about it. She herself is innocent, but is forced to watch all of these adult themes unravel before her. Sippy Cup kind of expands on the previous track, but takes it to the extreme by having her mother actually kill her husband and a woman she's been sleeping with. Crybaby, who was up in her room, comes downstairs to find the dead bodies, to which her mother swiftly covers her face with chloroform, only to tie her to her bed and poison her in the most dreadfully artistic way possible, with a sippy cup. What's interesting is that a lot of the story of the album is actually covered in an actual storybook that I believe was created in conjunction with the album. Each new page tells the story of that specific track on the LP, and each page is 4 lines and a picture to accompany it, just like a typical children's book. Really interesting way to tell the story and the plot of the album aside from the actual music. After all that mess, we're introduced to another element of the album that lasts for the duration of this LP, and that is falling in love. Carousel is more so about Crybaby falling for this boy while on a, you guessed it, carousel, but feeling like she'll never be able to get off that carousel. It's basically a metaphor for constantly going around in circles in life, an inescapable circle that no matter how hard you try to escape, you never will. The following track, Alphabet Boy, is more a personal story where Crybaby meets a boy that tries to show her everything, coming off as a smart aleck simply because he went to college. Crybaby realizes that she doesn't need him and leaves him. The backstory to this particular track is that while Melanie was in college studying music, she met a guy who tried to teach her how to write songs the right way, which annoyed her greatly. Any songwriter, including myself, knows that there is no right way to write a song, but I digress. The next track on the album is probably my favorite track. Soap is about Crybaby falling for this guy and feels very hopeful about the relationship, but is afraid to tell him how she truly feels, as if doing so will be like throwing a toaster in his bathtub, instead of telling him she washes her mouth out with soap. The reason this is my favorite track mostly stems from the instrumentation. Once the beat drops in this highly hip-hop influenced track, it uses the sound of bubbles popping, giving it an element of wonky and even trip-hop. It was mainly because of this that it stood out so much for me and made it totally unique. The majority of tracks on this album are produced by a hip-hop production duo known as Kinetics and One Love, and in my opinion, they did excellent work on this album. As described with the whole dark wave subgenre, the production style truly accommodates the general style and atmosphere that this LP was trying to convey. Each beat has a sense of innocence and inner pain, just as the character of Crybaby does. After Soap, we have Training Wheels, which Melanie described as the only love song on this album, as well as one of the first love songs she ever wrote. It's talking about how the guy and the girl, Crybaby in this case, being relatively new to love, and the guy is wearing training wheels, while the girl wants to remove those training wheels and take their love to the next level. It doesn't take rocket science to understand what those training wheels mean, but it's a very nice song nonetheless. The following track, Pity Party, I believe focuses more on things going on with Crybaby personally, and less on things that Crybaby is experiencing that we as people probably go through also. Simply, Crybaby is having a birthday party and nobody shows up, leading to a mental breakdown. The song actually borrows from Leslie Gore's It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want To. I know you've all heard of that song, during various points like the chorus. This is a pivotal point in the album where we begin Crybaby's dramatic descent into utter madness. The next 3 tracks following Pity Party all kind of follow the same event that takes place in the album. As it so happens, Crybaby is kidnapped by a big bad wolf dressed as an ice cream man on the track Tag You're It. This is meant to represent sexual assault in the way that when someone is sexually assaulted, they're tagged in a sense, and it uses the whole idea of the game of tag to exemplify this. So after that we have Milk and Cookies, where Crybaby gives the wolf poisonous milk and cookies in order to escape the wolf, and after that we have Pacify Her, an obvious play on the word pacifier as in a baby's pacifier, where Crybaby, after all that she's gone through, is beginning to embrace her madness, and even to the point of becoming a homewrecker. She literally breaks up a couple all because she knows they're not right for each other. While we're nearing the end of the album, I'll admit things are becoming a little convoluted here. I guess we can assume that after the whole fiasco with her family, she began to go through life on her own, experiencing love, heartbreak, all that sort of stuff. But as she's growing and experiencing these things, she's gradually becoming crazier, but it took her this long to reach that point. Even though her mother killed her father and poisoned her, she had complicated relationships, and so much more, it wasn't until she was sexually assaulted and kidnapped that she finally snapped. And we're not even fully there yet. The next track is Mrs. Potato Head, and at this point in the story, Crybaby is becoming more comfortable with who she is as a psychopath, and the idea of plastic surgery is brought up, where Crybaby rejects the idea of outer beauty over inner beauty, calling all of it a waste. So in that, there's a bit of a positive message in this track, but keep in mind that Crybaby is becoming comfortable with the fact that she's crazy, which is why she's even rejecting these ideas in the first place. The final track of the main album is Mad Hatter, where Crybaby finally comes full circle with the fact that she is who she is. As the storybook says, she's imperfect, insane, and emotional, and that's all she can be by this point, and she won't change for anything or anyone. It leaves almost a bittersweet feeling after finishing the album. You're glad that she's accepted who she is despite what other people think, but it's such a negative personality considering that she is insane as well as a homewrecker and an emotional wreck in general. There are 3 extra tracks on the deluxe version, and I'll go through these as quickly as possible. The first is Playdate, where Crybaby begins to realize that there's this guy she's been hanging out with that only likes her as a friend, and is basically leading her on, and even though she hates this fact, she can't help but continue to see him and have feelings for him. The next is Teddy Bear, where there are 2 possible ideas. The first is that her teddy bear has come to life and is trying to kill her, while the second, more plausible one, is that a man she's with that she thought was kind is now trying to kill her. The last bonus track is Cake, where Crybaby is simply saying that she's too good for this guy and isn't some piece of cake for him to throw away when he's done with her. These tracks are nice additions, but being that they're the last 3 tracks in the full version of the album, they feel so out of place story-wise, and I'll get to that in my overall portion coming right now. Overall, this is a very interesting album to listen to. It's highly story-driven and has many themes and tons of symbolism, such as the pacifier, the sippy cup, the teddy bear, the carousel, and so on. The music on here was fantastic, very hip-hop, trip-hop influenced. The beats were dark, menacing, playful, and devastating all at the same time. I loved how each track followed and progressed the story. Everything felt very organized and tight, except for the last 3 tracks. I know they're bonus tracks, but the main album itself is perfect as it is. Adding the last 3 tracks at the very end throw it off a bit, and that's mainly if you're looking at it from a standpoint where it's like, these tracks were meant to be a part of the album all along. The way I see it, Playdate would have been between Carousel and Alphabet Boy, Teddy Bear would be somewhere near the beginning, and Cake would be after Alphabet Boy. And these aren't like musically or stylistically, it's in regards to the album's story. In my mind, those spots and where those tracks, those are where, they most fit. Other than that, I really enjoy this album, and I definitely recommend it to anyone looking for something a little different than their typical pop music. Melanie's music has been described as a mixture of Adele, Lorde, and Lana Del Rey, but I guess it's safe to assume that Melanie is basically all of them mixed together and pushed to the max. Anyways, yeah, great album. It's really one of those albums you have to listen to at least twice to truly get it. So if you want an album that you can just put on for whatever, I wouldn't recommend this one. It truly does make you think and consider. Anyways, that does it for this album review. I thank you all for watching it all the way through. I know it's a little longer than most of them, but there was a lot to talk about and a lot to dig in. I want to thank the person that requested this review. Thank you very much. And if there's a song or an album that you want to see reviewed on my show, just leave a comment down below or hit me up on my Facebook or my Twitter and let me know what you want to see. Also, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. It really helps. And that's about it. Anyways, I'll see you all in the next video. So long.